Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dean Rogers Show. We have got a very special guest today, Jenna Hoover. Jenna, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm super stoked to have you because I've been, pretty much following you on social media and watching you grow and build your business and kind of build the life that you're looking for. And you've had some awesome ways that you've navigated this journey of entrepreneurship. So I think just to kind of let the audience know some of those exciting things that you've done and are still doing. You got started in the business same year as me, 2013. So you've been, also speaking and mentoring other people in the business, which is amazing. I know when I saw you get started, you were fixing up a lot of old houses, historic houses, and becoming like an HGTV specialist in these kind of houses, which is really cool. You've built a rental portfolio with both your everyday normal long-term rentals and Airbnbs. You're also a licensed realtor. It'd be kind of nice to talk about how that plays a part in your business as well. You have been nationally on TV infomercials, helping promote business and real estate coaching. So that's something exciting to dive into. You've been on HGTV and DIY Network, sharing who you are and what you do, which is incredible. You've been doing, public speaking and have been doing coaching. You're a mom, which on top of all that is maybe the hardest job of all, of course. And then you've got your life and business partner, Adam. We can talk about that, what that relationship's like. And then you've become, a pro at marketing and also a face for real estate CRM out there, RealFlow. So many things to talk about, so many things you're doing. And just for the listeners, if you're looking to follow Jenna, you want to check her out, see her on social media, you can go to Jenna Buys Houses on Instagram and check her out there. So, lots of stuff. Let's dive into it. So usually I like to talk, Jenna, about like how you got started in real estate. What's your story of how you got started?
So I started out, it's funny because I think about what I went to college for, and it was the medical industry. I went to school for radiology, which I use zero of, other than like living in a house and having x-ray vision, I guess. But
oh yeah. Nice.
So I went to school for that, but I always had such a passion for real estate, but it was always like a plan B to like whatever I was doing. I'd always say like, oh, I want to do that, but I just never had the guts to actually take action with it.
Where do you think that passion came from? Was it just watching the shows on TV and stuff like that?
Yeah. Like I would watch a show and I'm like, I want to paint my kitchen cabinets, or, my dad always wanted to do real estate, but it was like always like so out of reach. And I just always wanted to do it. I love the transformation. I love the shows that were on TV, but I just knew like zero people that ever did it. I had no education in it. And I was just so petrified. And so I'd always say like, oh, I'm just going to do real estate someday. Or, they do cutbacks at work. And I'd always say, well, who cares? Like, I'm going to do real estate someday. Or a relationship goes, heck. And I'd be like, oh, who cares? They're going to be sorry. I'm going to be a successful real estate investor someday. It was always like the thing that made me feel better when anything ever crappy happened in my life. Cause it was always like what I knew I was supposed to do. And, I had another one of those cutbacks at work, and it was like January of 2013. And I was at the gym, an ad for a real estate education company came across my phone, and I'm like, well, what else do I have to lose? Like, why not?
Yeah.
I was in a bad relationship that had fallen apart and things like that. And so I was like, why not? And so I went to it and I'm like, well, holy heck, like everything that I was scared about, I could learn. I could figure it out as long as I had the right mentor and the right education, and the right software. So that's what I decided. I was like, all right, this is my all in moment. Like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go to it. But then you instantly get that negative voice in your head. I'm like, well, I don't know. How am I supposed to know how to find these houses? And how am I supposed to know what to say to a seller? And
Yep.
how do I know how to walk into a house and figure out what it's going to cost? And, I had like no computer skills. I didn't even have like a computer growing up. I was super sheltered. So I was just like, my brain was just like running like crazy. And I said, all right, I need to calm down. I need to just go with an open mind. So, I was totally blown away. I just jumped in like literally head first. And I had to know, like at that point, I had no plan B. It was like plan A, like this is what we're doing, and just like
So where do you think you got that courage to do that? Because I think a lot of people, either listeners here or just people that are stopping themselves from doing it, right? They had the passion, but what do you think it was that just made you do it? Was it like a fight or flight? Like this is the only thing I could do. I had to do it to escape a situation, or was it like I got to bet on myself now, and it's now or never type of thing? Like what is it for you? Do you think it was?
I think it was a combination of a couple things. Like, I'm okay to share like my first initial real estate investment, what it cost. So in the beginning, it was $25,000 when I got into it, and it included a lot of different things. But one of the main things was 6 months of coaching. And I looked at it and I said, all right, $25,000, 6 months equals, roughly 24 weeks. I said 25,000, 24 weeks. Basically, every week I sit here and I don't do something, I'm taking $1,000 away from my daughter, because I had a little bit in savings that I had put away. And so I had to use that to be able to purchase. And I invested in myself, and I invested in, at that point, I just had her. She was 2. And so I said, all right, like I have to do this. I can't have a plan B with it. And maybe it was because I was, younger. I was 26 or 27 years old. And I said, like, I didn't know what I didn't know, I guess.
Yeah.
Thing. Like, I didn't know what could go wrong. And I was so excited about it. But I always felt like, like there's times where you feel like negative about yourself, and then there's times where you feel positive about yourself. And I always feel like my own inner voice was always like, you have something about you that is different from other people. Not like a conceited, you're better than other people kind of thing, but I felt like I was wired differently. I don't know if it was because I was so sheltered that I hadn't been ruined by the world. But I just felt like, if I'm going to do this, I know I'm going to be successful. Like when people fail, it's only because they quit and they didn't try absolutely every single thing possible. Like when you get into real estate, yeah, it's going to suck some days. You're going to look at it and be like, why did I do this? Why I should not have done this. This is stupid. Da, da, da. Like there's all those things that run through your mind. But I just said, all right, if I'm investing in this, I'm 100% all in. I can't look back, and I have to be successful. I have to do it. It's just the way I looked at it.
Yeah. So do you think you had a confidence in yourself that helped you just basically bet on yourself?
Yeah. I think I was confident in the fact that I knew that I could do anything that I wanted to do. I was confident in the fact that I had a good education program that was going to be behind me. And I just went for it. I literally said, I'm a piece of clay, shape me, mold me, figure out, like, tell me what I have to do. Like,
and that's the best kind of student, right?
I was not scared of calling somebody. I wasn't like, I'd have those moments where I'd start sweating and my face gets red and I'm like, oh my gosh, my phone's ringing. Here's a seller. Like, you have those moments where you're like scared for a minute, but I wasn't scared to do it because I knew that was what I was supposed to do.
So I think that's a huge lesson for people to, if they didn't catch it. One of the things that sets people apart that get to the success that they want and the ones that don't is not necessarily being, someone's better than the other or more skilled or more talented. It's just that you had the courage to do it. And even though you were still scared, right? Me too. Like a seller calls, I got to answer this. And you start, getting anxious and your adrenaline starts pumping. You can hear your heart beating, but those are the things that you have to do. You have to take the action and learn as you do. And by taking the action, you get the confidence. That's where the confidence comes in. So, and I think one thing that you mentioned there too, was you realized as a mom that you were a provider. And if you were going to make this investment, if you didn't take advantage of it, you were actually taking away from your family. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge recognition of that. And and owning it, and then, taking action to be responsible for that investment you made. So I joined the coaching program that you did as well, Fortune Builders. And for me, that's what it was. I needed someone. I was an open mind. Please teach me, show me the way, and I'll put the action in, even though I'm scared and nervous about it too. I just needed that confidence and that community to, here's the information. Now there's a community around me. Help push and guide me.
Yeah. And I think like a lot of times what holds people up whenever they're thinking about investing in their education, it comes down to your own like self-image, your own self-worth. And so some people will find an excuse like, oh, well, I can't spend that kind of money. Like I felt like I was definitely worth it. And I looked at it and I said, like, how much would I be spending if I got another college degree? How much would I be spending if I did whatever? And I said, like, I know that I mean, my first deal, I made $38,000. So, I mean, in one deal, I was able to recoup what I had spent on my education. And then from then on, but you just have to be able to feel like you're worth it, that you're worth that enough, that you love yourself enough to be able to invest in yourself, to be able to take yourself to that next level. Like, yeah, you can do it without an education company. I mean, people do it all the time, but I just knew I wouldn't have taken it as serious. I wouldn't have felt like, okay, this is my new career, my new job. I just felt like I was jobless living in my parents' house like I was,
So let's talk about that journey for you. So again, we both joined around a similar time, and from an outsider's view, like you came in and instantly like rose to stardom within the community, which is something that can be really cool and exciting by joining a larger community of other investors, like-minded people, is the opportunity to collaborate and, build relationships. So how did that come about for you? Let's talk about that a little bit, because I don't know if that was like strategic, like you had a plan. I'm going to come in, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to present myself this way, or it just it was overnight success, stardom type of thing. Like let's talk about that.
Yeah. So like I said, I was extremely sheltered. So we didn't even have computers growing up. I mean, I didn't even really have email till I was in college. So whenever I get into this, I never like I had a Facebook account and that was it. And so they're like, do all this marketing, post this, do that. And I'm like, okay, that's what they said. I'm coachable. I'll post. And I was doing like a lot of projects at one time. So like I was in a super distressed area. So I invest in some of like the poorest counties in the state of Pennsylvania. And also there's a lot of motivated sellers. And I'm getting into it, like right after like the whole Great Recession. So there's all these like foreclosures. I put up bandit signs that say Jenna buys houses, and I'd get like 16 voicemails the next day because nobody had ever heard of an investor in this area. So it was like shooting fish in a barrel. So I would put up my sign, I'd get all these leads, and I'm like, well, I can't pass this one up. I can't pass this one up. And I'd have all these properties. Like, so my first round of it, I put in 6 offers. Right after my first event I went to, all 6 of them got accepted. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I went forward on 5 of them. I was able to like wholesale one of them. I kept one of them as a rental for a while. I bought a couple of them and flipped them and things like that. But like my biggest problem is that I was in so much competition, like what you said, the image of me online. So like I would post different things and it would just go viral because it was like, who is this girl? She's in her 20s. She's a single mom. She's killing it with all these houses. So like the more that I posted, the more that people like fed into it. And then it just became where it was like, oh my gosh, like I have to keep up with this image of exactly who everybody thinks that I am. And then it just became, like super overwhelming. Like it just took off so fast for me. And I was at the point where like, I'd never really done anything on social media. So I didn't care. So like, if I'd post videos of me walking around, I wasn't shy behind a camera. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll show this house. I'll do this. I'll post these different things. And it got recognized so quickly to where it was only like 2 years into it. I mean, I was contacted by numerous like TV show opportunities. Like I declined probably 4 or 5 different TV show opportunities in the beginning, just because I was like, first off, that wasn't my goal. Secondly, I was like, my business is not at all mature enough that I can detach for a month, 2 months to go shoot an episode or, like a series or anything like that. So, and then some of the people that had approached me before were some people in the industry that I didn't want to be tied to,
Yeah.
other TV shows and things like that. So I was like, no, no, I don't want to do that. So it wasn't long before HGTV themselves contacted me, which is cool because everybody is always like trying to find them or trying to
Of
get on
course.
TV shows.
Yeah,
And
they're the pinnacle. They're the
yeah,
gold standard, you know.
yeah. So like one day I just get an email from HGTV and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Like I thought it was a big scam. And they're like, we've been following you. Send us a 10-minute video of who you are, what you do, and how you do it. And I'm like, well, I take videos all the time. So I just put this little combination of all these different videos that I had of myself and contractors and me with tools and us just screwing around and like it's really fun things like with my daughter and they're like, we love it. So then that's when they came out and did like a sizzle reel and then we filmed for like a whole month and a couple years ago. But they wanted to do more episodes and things like that. And they wanted to kind of change the theme. And it was a lot of work. And it wasn't something that I really saw as part of my big plan. So we actually declined doing anything more, at that point in our time.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was cool though. I mean, it took off super fast, but, and I didn't even try for it. So I think that that's kind of the fun, organic piece of it. I was just being me, being fun, being young. I look back at some of my videos. I'm like, that is so, in my daughter's words, so cringy, like some of my videos. Cause I just, I was just real and raw and, they were cute.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy. So, I mean, obviously that being in that environment where kind of the stardom kind of rises and everything like that can be a bit overwhelming. So how did you navigate that time, that experience? How did you like just keep a sound mind, like not go crazy into it?
Well, I think that was like we were talking, you and I, for like a minute before we got on here. And I was saying, like, there's a lot of positives, but there's also a lot of negatives. And I think at that point was like the turn in my business. And I don't want to like take it down this like dark path of misery. But the thing is like when you're doing a lot of really cool things, it's going to attract a lot of people, kind of like a moths to a light.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, it would bring in a lot of different contractors, a lot of different partners, a lot of different, a lot of different people. But the thing is, I was in not my early, I was in my 20s. I was very naive. I was very trusting. I went to 13 years of private schooling, very sheltered. I had like very small amount of like people interaction in my life. I was
Yeah.
married really young. I was in a relationship at 18, married at 21. So I wasn't around anything that was really negative ever in my life. And until I got into with different people. And so like I would have different contractors that I would trust that would take advantage of me. I would have partners that I was partnered with on different things where, we're doing 2 huge renovation projects, like 4-bedroom, I mean, like 3,000 square foot houses down to the studs. And, then they decide they want out of the deal and all of the funds that we had together, they had used for other projects. So I was left with 2 gutted houses and like $17,000 to finish them.
Yeah.
Things like that would have destroyed any business, like people that would want to work with me. And then they would become, like I would have a contractor on my TV show and then, they would just try to leverage that to their ability and then, screw me over on different projects, or I've had people steal from me. So there was a lot of downside to that because there was so much going on so fast and I just hadn't experienced. And I just, honestly, I didn't know what people had the capacity to do. And it was
Yeah.
just like blindsided by and not taking it down super misery roads because I should have been a better business person. I should have been more mindful of different things. And then that's whenever I had made different mistakes in my business that took me a long time to be able to recover from.
So I can give you the most amount of empathy possible because that is part of my story too. Where I, had lived, well, others would tell me maybe a sheltered life, maybe not as sheltered as yours, but still pretty similar. Private school most of my life. Married my high school sweetheart.
You guys
Got
are so
together.
cute and your kids are so freaking adorable. I can't even handle it. I had to interrupt you there.
They're the best things that we've done in our life for sure. But 17, got together with her, 17, married at 22 or whatever, right? And believing that I I think of only good things and doing things the right way, and would like to believe I attract good people and hadn't had bad things to me. But it wasn't until I got into the real world outside of the sheltered kind of structure of education and all that kind of stuff to where people came in and took advantage of me being susceptible to just believing people will do good. And so I have the most empathy for you because I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because of bad people taking advantage of good people. And it's just gut wrenching. It just makes you feel so sick and makes you, kind of brings your spirit down. But that's where I had to face myself and had to understand, like, no one's going to come to save me.
Yeah, that was like one of my themes one of the years is nobody's going to save you.
Yeah.
And you're like me, like you probably learn super fast. So it was like probably somebody's like shame on you when it happens to you, like or they say shame on them or shame on you or however they say it. But I bet that that's never going to happen to you again.
Yeah, definitely not. And the lessons I learned were so simple, like elementary type lessons, just that I needed to do further due diligence and make some additional calls just to verify stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's hard. And I think good-natured people, you're kind of an open target sometimes for that. But like you said, they were really, really important business lessons to kind of harden me around that, to just get focused and understand, like, okay, I've got my circle of trust of people, but anybody else I need to be more cautious with, right? And I need to take it slower. Don't just rush in with a bushy-tailed and bright-eyed, all excited, because not everything is perfectly as it seems always. So I'm sure that was a big, important lesson for you and hard to overcome it because it was painful. Like I remember going to bed, just my mind racing, my heart pounding, just feeling like so overwhelmed and stressed at times that it wasn't easy,
Yeah. And it eats you alive. But the thing is, like I said, I learned super fast. Like I have a very quick, my memory is really good and I learn really fast. And so something happens, like I soak it in and I apply it really quickly. So it's only a matter of time before I take that and I like literally it becomes part of me, but in a good way to make me stronger. Cause then I would use it then to my advantage. It was almost like, it was almost like a war scar that I'm not going to get that cut again because my skin is tougher now.
Yeah.
So I would go meet with contractors and I would be able to talk to them a little bit differently. And I would know what to say and not like you expect the worst, but I don't like my patience is way different and my tolerance is way different. Like I would have contractors that we were using the same shingles for the same, like 5 houses in a row. And they were telling me that it was more shingles than it was. So by the time that we're 3 houses in, they have enough to do another roof for somebody else. And, their contractors would come up and say like, hey, they fired me on this job, but I wanted to let you know they were stealing from you. Can I work for you on the side? And I'm like, well, as far as I know, you were stealing too. And then I would fire that person. And, so, it just helped me learn how to be a better business person, a better, just a better person in general. And so, it was definite learning lessons, but for the positive.
Yeah. I think a lot of people go through that. It's part of learning business, right? And learning how to navigate being an entrepreneur because, the buck stops with you. You're the one making the decisions and you got to realize like, hey, although I got taken advantage of and it was their wrongdoing, it still comes down to me. I made the decision to do that deal or to get involved. And the sooner you can recognize that, you can fix the decision making that you make. So how did you navigate that? How did you overcome that? How did you push through, persevere, have the desire, and still find the passion to like, I got to overcome this?
So the way that I look at things, like they always say that, not to bring too much religion into it, that, God's going to always put you in places where is your destiny, that he's not going to give you too much that you can't handle, those type of things. And I always felt like, okay, as long as I keep my morals, as long as I know who I am, as long as I do everything that I humanly know is ethically possible, that things are going to turn around for me. And so I just kept, I almost like put your head down, keep going, keep pushing, keep doing the things that I need to do. And so one day I was one of my contractors was doing some work and they said, this local landlord walked into the door and asked if it was so-and-so's project, like another local investor. There's like one other investor in my whole town. And my contractor said, no, but Jenna buys houses. And so he got this number for me. And so I contacted this local landlord and he's like, hey, I have all these properties. I want to sell them all. And so I bought this local landlord's entire portfolio. It was 15 different units. And then I added some more units to it, like throughout the years and things like that. But that was like the turning point. That was like 2017. And so I basically, like within, a month, like once we purchased them, I was like an instant landlord. I completely transitioned. So I was like, I was flipping houses. I was doing great things. But you probably know, of all people, when you flip a house, you live paycheck to paycheck, but it's one big glorified paycheck to paycheck. And it could be 6 months, it could be a year from the time you flip one house to the next, depending on how many you have in the assembly line. Yep. And so I kept thinking like, I need to have consistent monthly income just because things happen and I wanted to be sustainable as a business. And so I came across all these properties. I said, I don't know how I'm going to freaking buy them, but I ended up getting them for like $30,000 a door, which was fantastic. Yeah. And some of them were already rented and the rest of them, they were all move-in ready with the exception of like 2 that I had to put carpet in. So, I mean, it was just, they had a death in their family and they weren't able to pass them down. And so they just wanted to sell them to somebody who reminded them of them when they were a young couple. So, I ended up buying them and that kind of was the catalyst to transitioning my business to like almost like reshifting my mindset of like, okay, this is what I need to do. So then we started like really ramping up. In the last year, I got into Airbnbs, Airbnb arbitrage. And so like, that's my goal is to get more, so it was kind of like, so the thing that changed was first off, I had to get out of like misery lane, because like I can sit there and be like, oh, this project manager just stole $10,000 worth of my tools, all this yeah, that stuff happens, but I have to shake it off. Like one of my coaches was like, let it go off let it be like water off a duck's back, which sucks, yeah, you have to like get over it. You have to move forward. But I knew that I could figure things out. And like the hard part was, I think at that time, that's when I started to like get my fear. Like whenever I first got into it, I was fearless, I didn't know what could screw up. So I was like, go, go, go. And that's why I think I became so well known so quickly because I didn't care about what was scary. But at that point, like, I think that like I changed and I wish that I wouldn't have, because I feel like then I became like, I started getting the fears. I started getting the anxieties. I started walking towards something and then like kind of, I don't know if I should do that. And like, it kind of almost gave me like a PTSD when it came to real estate, because it was like, I was real scared. Like I was super timid. So I probably have turned down more things than I would have in the past, more opportunities, more collaborations, more things like that. But I'd rather be safe than sorry, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you get to a certain point in your career where like there's still maybe a growth mindset, but there's also a preservation and protecting mindset where it's like, okay, I've already done some great things. I'm in a good position. Now I just don't want to screw these things up and have them go south. So that's an important part of your business too, is making sure that you don't have things go south. Another thing I was going to say, which is crazy, is we have a parallel path with discovering rentals and having a shift in mindset there. So 2018, right at the end of 2017, I finally had the realization like, oh my gosh, I'm on this conveyor belt of flipping properties. Yeah. We were doing like 20 flips at a time and all this money would come in and almost more money would go out because we just had more and more projects and checks getting written. And it just felt like I was broke and not really building wealth. And so I finally realized like, okay, I got to start buying rentals. So that's funny. I started buying rentals around the same time too. And like you said, it was a shift of mindset of how to build a better business to facilitate the lifestyle and really like set yourself up for success,
Yeah. And it's like, it's a totally different thing. I mean, just dealing with tenants. And then in my area, we don't have any project management companies. I mean, that's something that's in
Wow.
my future goals is to create my own and then have multiple people that's involved in it, just because there's a lot of local landlords, but there's nothing that's really sustainable as far as project management. Like luckily, we're typically at full occupancy and we have great places that were, had good roofs and had good furnaces, and knock on wood, they didn't really need a lot of maintenance. So in time, that is going to be one of my goals, is to have something that's more established like that. But I mean, it is a shift. And even getting into Airbnbs in the last year, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm like a hotel concierge. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know, like, I mean, doing little things for people and making their stay enjoyable. Like that's like a totally different concept for me versus like knocking down walls and flipping houses.
Yeah, that's completely different. It sounds like you might need someone on your team to help manage all the rental stuff, if not already. Do you have anybody doing that, or are you wearing all the hats?
Oh no, I mean like so with Adam, my business partner. So
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
so he does a lot of that stuff. So he is kind of like the project management. So there, if something needs done, then he's gonna, be the one that handles it and then sends it out to our team as, if something needs to be done. But I mean, I'm not the one going and fixing a leaky toilet. I don't even know how to do that, but I wouldn't want to
Oh
do it
yeah, me
if I
neither.
knew how. So
Yeah. Well, perfect. So where do things go from there? So you've really started to get involved in some more of the public speaking and the coaching, and also representing a well-known national company, RealFlow, for CRM. So let's talk about that. Like, how did you transition into, getting on stage and talking and doing all of that, as well as doing the affiliate stuff with RealFlow?
yeah, so I think it was trying to think. I mean, I became a coach with the real estate education company pretty much like right away. And so I was just doing like regular coaching. And then a few years into it, then I became, one of their speakers for their weekend seminars. And then I did that for about 2.5 years. And then I said, I want to have another baby. I don't want to be working every single weekend. I mean, my daughter at that time, she was, I don't know, 6. And so she was getting in, she just started schooling. So she's like kindergarten/first grade, around there. So, I mean, we started having like soccer on weekends that I was going to miss. I mean, I missed
Hmm.
a dance review. I mean, like things like that, where I was like, this is not worth the amount that I'm getting paid on the weekends. So, plus right around that time, I just got all those rentals. So now I had that passive income that was able to make that lateral move of like, I'm bringing in this every month. I don't need to have this income. I can take time and now be home on weekends. And it was right around that time. I'd always been such a RealFlow fan. Like as soon as I got into real estate, I started using it. And it was what I used because it's everything. It's all inclusive. So it's going to be it's like, I like to call it my command center. So it has all the tools, all my CRM tools to be able to analyze all my properties. I can organize everything. I have all my leads right there. So I was a huge believer. So I became very close with the company. And so I said, I want to work with you guys. I want to do different things. So I started doing like kind of handled some of their marketing stuff, started doing like some of their Facebook videos, started doing some fun things like that. And I was just kind of doing things like a little bit behind the scenes. And then probably in the last year, I said, well, actually about 2 years ago, I created a coaching program with them. So like a mentoring program. And it was like really small. Like we were just like, because we just like wanted to baby it and see like, what are we going to do with this? So we had a very small group that we pushed this out to. And I had a group, I was able to coach them every single week for a whole year.
Oh,
And
nice.
then we launched it again. We just did it for like a 3 month. I think we just did it for like a quarter. We did it again. And then so I was doing different things with them in different capacity. And then in about the last year, I came aboard and I just said, all right, like, let's figure out a way to work together. And so now my goal is my job that I do with them is working and building those affiliate relationships with a lot of our big real estate gurus like who are out there with coaching programs to where we're able to white label our product and then be the face of your education company. And so we do a lot of, so we're working with pretty much, you think of a big real estate guru, probably we are the CRM that's behind them. So that's what I've been doing with them. So that's been a ton of fun. And with that, a lot of the stuff I've been on stage with is not necessarily with them. It's been whether I had a relationship with somebody or they wanted me to share some of my, journey of real estate or entrepreneurial stories or mindset related things. So I think a lot of the perks of getting into real estate was just the network of people that I built so quickly, and just really learning who's genuine out there and just really staying connected with those people, and then having the opportunity to share stages with a lot of cool people.
Yeah. So I think what would be helpful for people to kind of understand, because again, like, oh, Jenna, you're awesome. Well, of course you're going to be on stage because people want to hear what you're doing and you've done amazing things. But what do you think, someone who's maybe not there yet could do to help put themselves in the position to have the right relationships, to then be on stage and do different things like that? Like how could somebody who's maybe just getting started or really revving up their business, trying to make it, how could they position themselves best so that they could be doing things like that too?
So first off, like they'd have to decide, do they want to be on stages?
Yeah.
Like my problem was I'm like an extreme introvert. Like when I first got into real estate, like I was very much in your face on social media, but outside of social media, I'm like a little recluse. Like I like so intimidated, like just sit at home, do nothing. I mean, I'm just very, very quiet. So when people would ask me to do things on stage, I was petrified. Like my first event that I went to, I remember like my brain almost went into like two different parts. Like I remember I'm like sitting there doing my intro, I'm standing, I'm talking. And then the other half of my brain was like, there's the door. Like, you don't have to do this. Like, let's run. Let's get out of here as fast as we can. And I just remember I was like hyperventilating, like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And like, even for 2 years that I spoke every single weekend, I would still go into the bathroom right before I'd go, and I'd have to look myself in the mirror and be like, okay, you can do this. Like I to the point where I had my speeches so memorized that I just said the same exact thing every single week, that it wasn't that I don't know. I was so in my head. I just was petrified. And just, I mean, so I would say, like, first off, figure out, do you really even want to be on stage? And if it's a yes, then, I mean, because there's some people like that's when they're the most alive. Like they feel like that is where I am supposed to be. Then figure out, okay, so if I want to be on stage, what are you going to be on stage talking about? Like, what is going to be your trademark? What is your education piece? Like, what are you going to be sharing with the world? How can you contribute to other people? A lot of times, like, people want to come on stage, and I think this is why I always did so well on stage. People want to go on stage and they want to talk about all the great things that they've done. Okay, great. But people want to know how is that person tangible to me? I go and I share, like, yeah, I screwed up here. Yeah, I messed up here. Like, I'm going to share with somebody, like, everything, the truth of it. Like, I grew up in a super small town, I mean, I had to go move back in with my parents. I mean, like, things like that, where it makes you a real freaking person. Like, I don't want to go sit and watch somebody that's like, here's my personal jet. I'm so great. I have yachts. Okay, that's great if people have that. I mean, and it's not being envious that I don't, because I don't think that I could have an amount of money to, like, really, I mean, I guess if I had so much money and I had to put it somewhere for tax purposes, I guess I could figure that out.
I guess you buy a jet.
But that's not like my goal. Like, my goal wasn't to be on TV. My goal wasn't to do multiple things. Like, I did it. I had it. Like, it's great. It's on my resume, but then I'm still a real person after that. I'm still a mom. I still cook dinner. I still have to clean my own toilets, like, like in my own house. Like, people want to know how you're a real person, how you can make it work. And it's great when people tell you all the things that they've done, but I want somebody who's going to get in the trenches with me and look me in the face and say, everything's going to be okay. And I think that that's where I did really well as a coach, is I would get down on my knees and cry with people and really share with them and empathize and talk to them about, here's what can happen, but we're not going to let that happen. Like, it happened to me because we talked about the struggles that I went through, but I'm going to be super stern with them. Like, I've had, like, and it's not even like therapeutic sessions, but some of my students, like, whenever I started working with them, I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. This week you have to go on a date with your wife. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you're my real estate coach. And I'm like, look, here's what's going to happen, because you probably know, like, when you have 1,000 things to do, but only time for so many, you kind of pull away from the givens in your life. I like to call them the givens: your friends, your family, your health, like the things that you would normally want to focus on. And I said, and like, it was probably a year later, they're like, we almost got divorced. And if it wasn't for you, telling us and pushing us and working with us, then we probably would have thrown everything away. But like I would force them, like, here's no, you have to do this. You have to detach here. You have to work on this, because there's so much more involved in real estate than just real estate. You can't just be a real estate robot all day long. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a long answer there for you, but
No, I think that's good, because I think what people need to understand is people, especially now, today, people are more attracted to the realness. Like people want to understand the real you, like what makes you tick, so that they can understand, like, are they like that too? Or, oh, they're going through something too, and you have as well. Okay, like I'm okay. I'm okay with not doing well right now. I'm okay with not being okay, right? And I think that's what helps people kind of come together as an entrepreneur, because the world as an entrepreneur is kind of lonely. And a lot of times you're spending a lot of time by yourself. You're not in an office with hundreds of people and lots of socializing. Like you're working longer hours by yourself. And that can be really hard sometimes, especially when things aren't going great. So I think that's helpful for people to understand that. So man, there's so many good nuggets throughout your story. And it's cool that there's a lot of parallel paths that we went through as well. What would you share with the listeners who are just getting started, who are like, man, is real estate the thing? Is it the vehicle for me? What would you say? I mean, is it like, yes, this is the path, this is the way for you? And what is that thing that you use kind of throughout your journey to push through the hard times?
I mean, I'm always a huge fan of real estate. Like whenever I first got into it, I was like, I don't know why everybody doesn't do this. I mean, you can buy a house, flip it, and make thousands of dollars. I didn't know why everybody just didn't do it. I guess you just have to be a certain breed of person to be able to have that, that tolerance for it. But the cool thing about real estate is you can learn so many different avenues of it. And no matter what the industry, because I got so tired of hearing, oh, the market's this, oh, the market's that. Okay, you can wholesale, you can flip a house, you can have rentals, you can get in Airbnbs, you can do different things where you can do different sort of, collaborations. And there's like so many different things that you can do, so many facets of real estate that you don't have to worry about. No matter what the market's going to do, you can figure out a different way, especially if you have different relationships for it. But I mean, just figuring out what their niche is, like figuring out what they want to do. If they were to sit here and vision things out and have a vision board or visualize and say, I mean, like when we're little, we have this imagination. And then when we get older, we lose it. And like just sit and pretend and think, what would be the best case scenario? And then almost like reverse engineer it and figure out, I want these things, then how am I going to do it? What do I have to do? How much money do I have to bring in? Then how much marketing do I have to be able to generate this amount of, et cetera, so you can work together. But my best advice is somebody like you would be like for students is to tag on to somebody like you, somebody who is, a super cool person, a super great dad, a great partner, somebody who's willing to share those I was in the trenches story. And then, you have your own program, you work with people, you coach people. I mean, there's no other person that if I'm a brand new investor that I mean, you have how many, hours and hours of knowledge in your brain that you have learned, like thousands of hours and thousands of hours that you've been in this. And then you're like literally the compilation of how many different probably education programs and the compilation of all these different networks of people. And you've done so many different things. Like people need to stick and gravitate towards you. Because you're doing your podcast. I mean, it's a matter of time before you're like on these huge stages and people won't be able to have that type of close-knit relationship and ability to work with you. So it's like, get connected with you right now and really start learning from somebody like you, because you've done it all. You've done so many different things. I mean, heck, you were in the football fields and things like that. I mean, you're like, you have so many connections, so many different things that you've done. And so I would say for listeners, if they're on the fence, just freaking do it. Like, they're listening to you. They already know you and like you.
I'm laughing because you're promoting me. I'm like, no, let's talk about Jenna. Jenna's the best. Go to her.
Well, I mean, right now I don't have my own coaching thing. So that's why I'm saying,
but I think that's
finding a mentor.
The best advice that I just shout from the mountaintops is if you're new, you're on the fence, go surround yourself with people that are in your community that you look up to and aspire, right? And find the right one, like, or couple, because there might be some people where you get next to them and then you realize, I don't really like this person. And then you get next to this, oh, this person's real. This person's my vibe. And this is who I want to aspire to be. Be around them, add value to them, and then amazing things happen. You just put yourself in the right rooms with the right people, like Jenna, then amazing thing happens. So really appreciate you being on. It's been an extreme pleasure. It's been cool to hear more about your story too, and the similarities, like I said, the ups and the downs for sure. But man, what a great pleasure. So guys, again, if you want to stay connected with Jenna, the whole point of doing this is for us to grow, to learn and network with each other. So make sure you follow Jenna. Jenna Buys Houses on Instagram. You'll see all the stuff that she's up to. And again, thanks so much for being on, Jenna.
Thanks for having me. And it's on Jenna Buys Houses on all platforms. So
Perfect.
Facebook, Twitter. I just started getting on TikTok. I have a couple of videos. My daughter's going to try to have to help me like get really cool on there. So
yep.
Yeah, but thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to have heard your story too. I mean, I just always knew you as like, there's this guy, he's like this awesome investor. Everything is perfect. So it was like really refreshing to know how similar our stories.
Yeah.
And when you're in it in yourself and you always think like, man, does this crap only happen to me? So
I know
it's just nice to know that, you know, that you have that similar type of a path. And again, it makes you so much more tangible, because if I'm a student and I want to learn from somebody, I don't want somebody that's only had everything perfect happen to them. I want somebody who has done it and persevered and just still kicking butt. And then here you are with your own friggin' podcast, being super awesome. And just, you're going to be just, I don't know, doing great things.
Well, hey, I feel I'm the one that's honored here to be in your presence, and appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing wisdom, sharing your story with everybody. So again, make sure you connect with Jenna. She's doing awesome, great things, and you'll want to see what she's up to next. I definitely want to as well. So again, thanks so much for being on. Until next time, peace.
See ya.